Welcome to the road to growth, success of an entrepreneur.
We've raised the bar.
Learn firsthand from successful business owners and create your own path to success.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
It's time to hit the road to growth with team lead of the Enriquez Group, Realtor Vinny.
Hi, Realtor Growth listeners. Today I have Nick, certified life coach and coaching, I guess, right? Simplest way.
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
I mean, you've gone through some wild stuff. So I guess we'll probably talk a little more about that. One of the things that I always do bring up, though, when I have coaches on the platform, because it seems like, I mean, and I don't know if because I'm just in the podcast space, but it definitely seems like I've seen more and more quote unquote coaches. So what separates you from, I guess, other coaches?
Yeah, it's a great question, man. It's the Wild West out there. There's a lot of coaches and it's totally unregulated. And so anybody can just, hang out a shingle and say, hey, I'm a life coach. And, some of those are legit and some are maybe not. But I think that what sets me apart is a couple things. One is I'm a transformational coach. So I'm really about, I can help you become the next version of yourself. So that, that spans all kinds of industries, careers, situations, whatever it is. When you're at a point in your life when you have a big dream to play bigger and you need to become the next version of yourself to do that, to meet that dream, I can help with that, right? And so that's one thing that's different. The other thing is I actually have methods and techniques, right? So there's structure to what we do. It's not just let's get on a call and just see where it goes. And I'll ask you a bunch of questions and, you'll discover the answers within. Like there's some of that happening, but we actually have, a proven framework, a number of them that we'll choose based on your situation to go through. And then I think the last thing is just my own life experiences. I'm in my mid 40s. I've lived a lot of life. I've reinvented myself many, many times. And I've really done the deep dives to understand, like, what is this process that I keep going through and how can I help other people do it in a way that's maybe a little less challenging or less painful than what I've gone through. So, yeah, I think that sets me apart.
So when you say transformationalist, are in your eyes most coaches not transformationalist, or what's the difference between a transformationalist coach compared to a regular coach?
Yeah, fair question. So there's all kinds of different coaches. Some people are strictly a business coach, right, or a relationship coach, or whatever it is, whatever niche that they're in. A transformational coach is someone that really understands this process of becoming, right? And so a lot of coaching over the years has been kind of in a few different modes or buckets, right? So there's the humanistic coach, which I kind of touched on. This is like, hey, let's just talk it out. All the answers are within you. That's one thing. That's sort of an outdated way to do things. There's things that we can bring forward from that we learned that are effective, but then there's like the expert or the consultant, and this is how I did it. This is how you do it. Go do it the way I say to do it. That's also been kind of considered coaching for a while. And then there's also the like accountability coach. This is like really, a lot of people think about coaching. They think, oh, okay, you're going to be my accountability guy. You're just going to tell me to go do the things. Maybe we co-create that together. What should I go do? But then the coach's job is just like, go do it, and you come back to the next session and you're like, did you do it? And you're like, no, I didn't. And it's like, oh, come on, go do it, go do it this time. And those are forms of coaching. And that's been primarily what's out there in the field until now. And when we get into transformational coaching, a lot of what I'm doing is being developed in real time. And the idea is like, okay, all of that is great, but how, right? How do I go do the thing? How do I actually transform? And that's a lot of what I bring to the table is the actual how, right? It's like we have methods, we have the technology, the human technology. We know how to create this transformation. And it's really brings us back to like the core of what does it mean to be a coach, right? So
Correct me wrong. In the three kind of pillars of coaching, I guess, in your eyes, you have kind of like almost like psychiatrist model, right?
Right.
You have kind of
like the
almost,
therapy.
Yeah, therapy. The second one is kind of almost like a business, more business focused, I guess, right? Where it's like helping you kind of grow your business. I have a business, blah, blah, that kind of stuff. And then the third one, in your eyes, is someone in a rut and you're trying to kind of build a game plan of how to get out of that rut and figure out what's next for them.
Yeah, so exactly. And so there's been, those have been kind of the main buckets of coaching for a long time.
Yeah.
And each one has value. But there's something that those are all missing that's really core to just coaching in general, right? Like life coaching came from athletics coaching, and it is informed by, performance coaches, like human performance arts, right? There's coaching in the performance arts. There's coaching in martial arts, right? There's coaching in athletics. And the key to all of that coaching is practice, right? And so that's what life coaching, sort of the latest developments in life coaching are going back to those basics and go, wait a second, we kind of missed the whole big picture, right? So we can, having a plan to go out there and take action for the week and having some accountability built around it, that's really effective. Having conversations that evoke awareness, in that kind of therapy model, there's something about that that's effective. And then having the expertise, having a consultant mindset to like, hey, I've done it this way. The way you're thinking about doing it, probably not going to work. Why don't we try it this way? Those all have value. The trouble is when you rely only on those and you don't have an opportunity to practice real life, then you're missing out, right, on a lot of value that you can get from coaching. Because when you show up to let's say you want to be a soccer player, when you show up to practice, the coach isn't just going to sit there and talk to you about, oh, what's your vision for becoming a soccer player, right? That's part of it. He's not just there to hold you accountable to show up to practice and to do your drills throughout the week. Part of it, but it's not all of it. The coach certainly knows how they got to become a great soccer player or a coach, but that's not all of it, right? The biggest piece when you show up as wanting to play soccer is to practice. Coach is going to be like, all right, let's kick the ball around, right? You kick it to me, I'll kick it to you, go do your drills. Let me see how you're doing, offer some feedback, some reflections, some observations. And so that's where transformational coaching, especially the kind of coaching that I'm doing, we really pull in this practice. So we look at, hey, what's your situation? What's your dream? Always start with the dream. What's your vision for the direction you want to take your life in right now? And then based on that, what are the opportunities that you see in front of you, right? And then we get really clear on those. Okay, what are a few of those opportunities? And then we practice them in real life. So we have techniques like role play, visualization, embodiment stuff that allows you as the player in your game to actually practice a situation that you want to create in your real life and then go out and do it.
You talked about basically the life events that you've gone through also kind of separate you from other, I guess, coaches, right? So when you think about those life events, what are you kind of thinking about? Yeah,
so there's a few. I've reinvented myself a few times, right? I've been an engineer. I was as a manufacturing engineer for many, many years, working on new product development, process improvement, things like that. Working on a pretty high performance team in that area. I've been an Army Ranger. I was in special operations. Just as part of one of the most high performance teams I've ever been a part of. Learned so much about what it's like to be on a team like that and how to be really pushing myself, and be on a team where every individual is on the cutting edge of their own growth and their own performance. And then also in the military, I was deployed. I have over 200 combat missions. And so I learned a lot about fear. Right? I learned a lot about taken a step forward in spite of that fear. And then I was actually, before that, I was a punk rocker. I played in bands. You know, I was up on stage and performing, and you know, all those experiences, along with, you know, becoming a dad and going through divorce and just, you know, moving through all these challenges that life presented. All of those things really crafted the person that I am now in a way that I can really show up, and there's nothing that scares me, right? I haven't met a situation where I talk to somebody and I go, oh man, that sounds just too big. I don't get it. Right. Yeah. Having met some of these really big situations in my own life, I feel very comfortable, you know, talking to anybody, supporting anybody through really any life situation. And we can get more into the specifics of how I feel like each one of those contributed if you want, but,
yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
interesting to see kind of, yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, you know, with the engine, it's funny because I've done a lot of reflecting in my own life and go, man, I went this way and then that way. And then, you know, it's like I was in corporate and then I was punk rock and then I was in the military. And how does it all come together? What's the through line? And, you know, with the engineering, it was really about like process improvement, right? Picking apart a challenge or a situation and understanding what are the pieces, what are the patterns here that are leading to, you know, defects or that are leading to success, and how can we really start to build in more of those success patterns. So that was part of what I was learning there that applies now.
So with the engineering, that was the first, like, so you went to college and then jumped in to become an engineer?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I went to college, got into my engineering career. That was where I also started to get into the punk rock scene and was playing music. So it was like, a professional by day and a punk rocker by night, which was kind of an interesting experience. But yeah, so the engineering taught me really a lot about like analytic, you know, using my analytical mind and creating solutions, being able to observe different things, you know, phenomena happening in real time. Being in the punk rock scene, you know, taught me a lot about questioning cultural paradigms, you know, and seeing other ways of doing things, which is also really helpful to get creative and co-create solutions for the people that I'm serving now. And it was an experience of really putting myself out there, right? I mean, a lot of people, their biggest fear is, you know, public speaking, right? Or just being out in public in front of people, up on a stage in the spotlight. Like that can be a very scary thing. So it's cool for me to be able to experience that in my own life and feel what it's like to be up on a stage, you know, and facing that fear of like, whoa, here I am, everybody's looking at me, you know. So yeah, so that was a really powerful experience. And
so you're like you said, punk rocker at night, engineer, and then did you start a career in the engineering field, or what happened next, I guess, after college?
Yeah. So after college, I worked as an engineer for about 12 years, and was playing music and doing all that. And then it was about 8 years after college. And so about 28, 29 years old, that's when I decided to join the military. And so I kind of took a hard turn into a totally different.
What put you in that direction?
So I had always wanted to be in the military, like from as young as I can remember. You know, I played GI Joes and played Army and went out into the woods and built forts, you know, and pretended that I was in battles with imaginary enemies and stuff like that. And it was just something I always thought I was going to do. And when I was 17, I walked up to the recruiter in the hallway of my high school, and they said no. And at that time, you know, they weren't recruiting a lot of numbers, and I had some medical stuff as a kid. So they looked at that and said, no, you know, you can't join. And that was like just totally rocked my world, right? This was my plan for my whole life. And that's when I decided, okay, I'll go to college and I'll do these other things. So I kind of had to adjust and reinvent myself already at that point. But it was just always was this like thought in my head, you know, always a desire that really never went away. And about 28 years old, I met a guy who had just gotten out of Ranger Regiment and became friends with him. And he was telling me all about his experience. And then he decided he was going back in. And I just said, I'm going to come to the recruiters with you. I'm going to check it out. So it was still, really alive for me. I felt like it was something that I either had to do it, like, okay, I got to do it now, or I just have to totally let go of this, of this desire. So
what, I mean, everything was good with because that's what, like 2010, right? And
2008, 2007, 2008. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, that was a difficult time for a lot of people out there. So was it, did you have your job was still going, it was strong, there was no issues there?
Yeah, job was strong. For me, it was like I had reached a point in my life where I just felt totally uninspired, unalive,
Okay.
and was looking for something else. I felt like I needed to do something that was bigger than me, right? It was really, I was just looking for something that felt like it had a sense of meaning. Because for most of my life up until that point, I realized now that I was really living it for like other people's expectations. I was just kind of going through the motions. I was doing the things that should lead to success and other people said were a good idea, but at no point had I really done a deep dive into what I wanted, for my life, except for originally having that plan of going in the military, And so I think honestly for a good decade or more, I just was drifting because I had that forced course correction, right? Like, okay, you can't go this path that you've been dreaming of your whole life. And so it took me a long time to rediscover what that purpose was. And it was the military at that point. So a lot of other factors, I guess, external factors had to come together. But even that experience helps inform how I guide people today, because if I had a guide at that point, at 17, 18 years old, had someone skilled in like, okay, well, let's create the next intentional version of you, I think my life probably would have looked a lot different instead of just kind of going through the motions for over a decade.
So you joined the military. How long were you in the military for?
4 years and 17 weeks.
Okay. And then
yeah.
Was there plans to be a lifer, or what kind of happened there?
Yeah, at that point, when I joined, I thought, okay, cool. I'm feeling super on purpose. I mean, it was once I made that decision and I got in, it was like man on fire, right? Like I just knew, even before I got to MEPS, I knew I was going to be a Ranger. It was just like a done deal. It was just a matter of going through the steps. I had memorized the Ranger Creed, like as a civilian. So I just had this burning desire, this super committed kind of clarity to this is what I'm going to do. And I thought, yeah, maybe I'll do, a full career. At that point, I was 28 years old, 29 by the time I actually joined. But, so I thought, okay, 20 years, I'll just be about 50 years old. I could probably hang that long. And when I got in, it was absolutely the right thing for me for a while, and I felt super on purpose, and I had kept having these next goals, next objectives, right? I was like, all right, get to my unit, prove myself there, get to Ranger School, make it through Ranger School, get that next rank, and so I had these things driving me for a while, and I felt really on purpose. And then at some point, I think I just started to get fatigued. I started to feel like maybe I'm not this like liberator, for freedom that I felt like I was when I joined. That was a really big driver for me. My whole vibe is freedom. It always has been. And I can look back and go, oh yeah, I made that choice based on what I thought freedom was at that time. And, as you know, once you're in the military, you might be part of creating freedom, but you're not free, right? you're a kind of a piece of property in a lot of ways. And so I started to feel that the burden of that, not being able to have as much choice in my life, and started to experience a lot of friends getting killed in combat, and it just started to get really heavy. And then as soon as that happened, and then I started to feel less aligned with purpose and mission, I started to really reconsider how long I was going to be in for. And so, by the time reenlistment came up, it was still a really tough decision. I mean, I was on a really cool path to do some neat stuff in regiment, and we were still very busy combat, and but I also had gotten married, was about to have my first son, and so I did the math and just kind of weighed things out where I was mentally and decided to get out.
Did you have, so the first time you really didn't have a vision of what was going to happen, you just kind of had like the gut, I guess, of going to the military. So the second time when you're leaving the military, did you have a vision of what you wanted to do next?
No, so I felt like I was super on purpose, had a clear vision going into the military. I'm like, I'm going to be a Ranger, and that was great. And, achieved that. Getting out was much more like moving away from something, and I didn't have a plan. And so again, I went into this sort of like drifting. I went back into engineering because I had that, had that skill set, and that was where I could generate the most value for myself and my family. But yeah, I didn't really have a vision, and getting back into the engineering was more of like a safety net type of thing, which is something, I explore with my clients all the time. It's like, we basically have these kind of two options. We have safety and we have growth, right? We have safety and we have the dream. And there's always this tension between the two. And I started to feel a little bit of a pull towards a new dream when I got out. But I ended up choosing safety, and there's never any judgment with that, right? Like, we do this all the time in our lives, and it's all good. We make the best decision that we can at the time. So I went back into engineering, but that was pretty quickly started to become kind of dull, right? I was not lit up by that, especially coming from a situation like, Ranger Regiment combat, where it was like, man, I felt like a superhero most days, and that was what I was being told too, of course, by everybody around us. We're like, hey, you're the best of the best. You're awesome. You're the tip of the spear. You're so important. And they go from that feeling like really driven, really on mission, really inspired, lit up every day, surrounded by people that I loved and that celebrated and supported me being the best version of myself, to like, okay, now I'm a new dad. I'm a husband. I work a 9-to-5 engineering job. It was just like very, very different.
So how did you stay positive, I guess, in that change?
So at that point, I didn't have many of the tools that I have now around, moving towards a dream and staying positive. So my go-to approach, which I think is pretty common in our day and age, was achievement, right? Was just like, I'm just going to find the next thing, and I'm just going to achieve that, and just keep pushing, keep driving, keep grinding, hustling, run into the next thing, which for me feels like now was part of a coping mechanism, right? It was part of me, like, especially after the military, a lot of the hard things I experienced there, I was like, I don't want to look at any of that stuff. Right. So I'm going to keep myself so busy with projects and goals that I won't have to look at that stuff. So I just kept having kids, right? Growing family. We had 3 kids. They were under 4 years old, just knocking them out year after year. I went for my MBA, right? I was like, so just push. What's the next level, of quote unquote success that I can reach? We bought houses and like fixed them up and sold them, and so it was like just all these like projects that were going at a maddening pace, that was just how I dealt with what was going on at the time. And it was a very difficult transition. I had physical injuries that I was recouping from, definitely had mental impact. And at that time, I think there's a lot more resources now, but at that time in 2012, it was like, hey, thanks for your time. There's the door. See ya. Right. And so
when did you get a coach, I guess, to help you with mindset for yourself?
Yeah. So that was when things really started to change. So, So a few years after getting out, here I was, I'd moved to a different state now with my family, bought and sold a few houses, had my MBA, was going to work as a manager with a medical device company. And I just totally hit a wall, like totally burnt out. This, that approach of like, let me just keep running and keep achieving and try to hit some point of, success, markers of success that the external world says are important. And then, when I reach that, then I'll be happy. It was like that approach just came crumbling down. And I hit a wall, man. I was like physically unhealthy, mentally unhealthy. Family was all, relationships were all strange. And I just said, I'm done, man. I can't do this anymore. I had this awareness that came through that was like, I need to live an intentional life. And I didn't talk like that. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know how to do that, but it was a really strong impulse and insight. And so I started to seek, what does that even mean? And that pretty quickly led me to other individuals who were focused on personal growth and transformation. I went to a group coaching session that this local coach was putting on, and it was amazing. And it just really opened my eyes, and pretty quickly hired a coach. And the first couple sessions, we started to talk about, what are my values? And I was like, oh, good question, right? Let me get clear on that. And then one of the first things that we had on the action plan was to explore potentially becoming a coach. Because at that point, I'd had a few experiences around coaches where I thought, hey, this really resonates, and I think I have a lot to offer. So let me see what that would look like to become a coach. And
So one of and the model, I guess, that you're a part of there, is it the same model that you're currently part of? Like the structure was that the coach basically, one of the first things they asked was, well, do you want to be a coach?
Yeah. So this was something that was kind of percolating in me. And so, this coach helped to kind of facilitate that,
so it's not their structure to basically bring you on and then kind of bring another coach underneath them and another coach underneath them, kind of like not in this case. No, my first coach, just a life coach, had this had a lot of the approaches that I talked about without really the practice piece. There wasn't too much of that happening in the sessions, but I did get a ton of value just out of showing up every week and talking to somebody and reflecting on what are my desires, what are my insights, and talking about my values and things like that. And a lot of that stuff I pull into my coaching as well, just with the the addition of the ability to actually practice big moments in your life. What are your plans? If we were talking in 5 years from now, where do you hope to get this coaching business to that point?
Yeah, well, I love that question. It's it really points to my big dream, and my big dream is to be a wildly successful solopreneur coach, right? So with a thriving practice, 20 plus players at a time with a waiting list, and I want to write a book. I want to be speaking on stages, and really just continuing to expand my mission to inspire and uplift as many people as possible to live their dreams and love their lives.
If someone's listening and they're looking to get coaching and looking to, I guess, assess what you could offer, what's the best way of them reaching out?
Well, so there's an opportunity tomorrow. I'm having a webinar, which I know is late notice for a lot of people, but I'm doing a free live webinar that I'm happy to share the link for, or you can just go to my website, nickdevlincoaching.com/webinars, and register there. So I'm going to be talking about a lot of this stuff, like what are some of the cutting edge developments in life coaching, how do I employ them, and what's possible for you. We're gonna have a chance to kind of touch on what's your big dream and come up with a plan to take some steps forward. So that's one thing. I offer a call. I call it the Get to Know You in Your Dream call. It's just a 30-minute session. I love to have those conversations. That's me living my dream when I'm just sharing about dreams and hearing about yours. So that's a great opportunity. Really, any any life coach, most life coaches will offer some kind of exploratory call, and so my advice to anyone who's curious about coaching is just find a whole bunch of coaches that feels like might resonate and connect with them and see if they have an exploratory call.
Would you say that's the biggest thing for individual looking for the right coach for them, is someone that resonates with them? And then if so, what's one of the biggest red flags of talking to a coach?
Yeah, 100%. Great question. I think the resonance, or the vibe, or just finding someone that feels like a good fit is probably the most important thing. Definitely want to you want to inquire about like what's their technique, what's their method, how are they going to help you move from A to B. I think the vibe is super important. There's so many different coaches out there, and the other thing is, as the player or as the client, you're the one with the power in this situation, right? So if you have a couple sessions and it doesn't feel like the right fit, then you can bounce. That's how I do it with all my players. I mean, I have some that have been with me for 5 years, and we're still month to month, right? Like I earn my position as their coach every month. Red flags to look out for: pressure. If a coach is pressuring you to sign up with them, that to me is a huge red flag. If they're giving off this air of like guru vibes, like they have all the answers, that's also a red flag for me. I think those are the biggest things that I would say. It's really trusting your gut when you're talking to someone. There is going to be, probably for a lot of people, there's going to be this like moment of fear, right, or hesitation or uncertainty when you're taking a leap into something like personal transformation to live your dream. Like that's a big step. So most of the time there's some kind of feeling of fear. So that's not what I'm talking about with like, trusting your gut. There's a difference between, hey, this doesn't feel right. It feels like this guy's kind of, snake oil salesman, versus like, whoa, I see what's possible. And that it feels a little scary to take this leap, right? That's a good kind of fear to have. And a good coach will challenge you in that moment, right, to invite you to your greatness.
Thank you so much, Nick, for being on the platform. Hopefully everyone listening got some great information. Nick's information is in the show notes. One last question.
Yeah.
In the life that you've already talked about, you've kind of went past your life and the kind of like the big milestones you had.
Yeah.
If you could talk to your younger self, which part of your life would you think you'd be able to bring the most impact to them, and what would you say to them?
To a past version of me?
Yeah, like is it that person that before they went to college? Is that person that basically got out of college and got into engineering? It's a person that went after the military. I mean, looking back at that, what kind of
Man, that's an awesome question. I want to have like 4 or 5 of those opportunities and just go back to each pivotal chapter. But I think probably getting out of the military, I would go back and talk to that version of me and say, hey, like go for your dream, like go now, instead of waiting. Do it.
What would you say? Like do what?
Do follow your dream now. Follow your dream now.
Okay.
Yeah. Follow your dream now, which might have been a little different than the coaching and maybe would have led me to this. I do feel like this is my calling and my whole purpose for being on earth. But there were definitely some years there where I think I could have spent developing my dream. And
Well, again, thank you so much, Nick, for being here. Any last words before we sign off?
My whole thing is that I believe that everyone is already free and evolving towards love. And that's what I'm here to help them realize. So, yeah.
Again, thank you so much, Nick. Hopefully everyone listening got some great information. Please take a look at the show notes. And if you do need any kind of real estate help, please reach out to the Enriquez Group. Information in the show notes. Bye, guys.
Bye.